That is super low.
2 years later.
Hello, my little Luxes. This is another episode of Luxxxy Charms, and I am your host, cosplayer Charsie Lux, and welcome to another episode of Ghost Stories My Father Used to Tell Me. As always, you are welcome to this channel, and this is another episode of, like I said, Ghost Stories My Father Used to Tell Me. And this should be the 12th ghost story that we have told on this channel. And as you can see, I am a little cute bat today. I was gonna say, in my area, the bats aren't necessarily cute looking flying teddy bears like fruit bats and things like that, but I've always liked bats and I think they are all cute, especially the ones in my area. They're like this little itty bitty and they're tiny. It's just they get a bad rap because unfortunately it is common for them to carry rabies around with them, which if you've seen Cujo, that's how the dog Cujo ends up getting the rabies, is because he finds a group of bats that bite him, so... But anyway, so today's ghost story is going to be another throwback to one of my dad's stories. So yes, this is one that my dad did used to tell me. And it is based on a true story that happened to him. Real nice and simple. This one is called The Bat. I have to watch that camera because sometimes this goes in and out. I'm not sure why and what's going on. I did an update on my usual program and now it's just been kind of spotty. So we'll see what I get to work with when this is all done. So this tale happened quite a few years ago, back when my father was just a kid and he was going to visit his grandmother, and she was getting up there in age, so she lived with my father's aunt and her husband. And just because she was older, just unfortunately she was a little more immobile, she needed more help, and instead of her going to a nursing home, she lived in their home with them. Well, it just so happened that they were planning, my father's aunt and uncle were planning on going on vacation. Well, instead of my father's grandmother going with them, she just wanted to stay at the house. So they had asked my father if he could stay the night with her for a few nights while they were away on vacation to help her out just with the small things around the house. And the fact that, it just would be easier for somebody else to be there to help her out just in case of an accident or just to help out in general. So my father, it was during the summertime, so my father had agreed that yes, he would just go along and he would help out whenever my great-grandmother, but his grandmother needed help with anything. So my father went over there to stay for a few nights while his aunt and uncle were away, and he just kind of got to take over the entire living room to himself. And he said it was one of those older brick houses, and he said it was a very historical house in the area as well. And he said he loved this old house, but it was also a very creepy little house. But my father was always into the strange and abnormal, but when you're a kid, it's not as cool, especially if the house is creaky and old. So while my father was downstairs in the living room watching some TV, his grandmother had decided to go upstairs and get ready for bed, and I guess she was in bed reading, but he was downstairs enjoying some old television series. I can't tell you exactly which one it was, I just know that he was watching an old series of some sort. So he was engrossed in the television. And while he was watching the TV, he said there was this weird shadow that kept going above his head. Now mind you, he had the lights out while he was watching this TV. And so he was trying to fathom what this weird shadow that kept kind of like fleeting over his head. And it just kept fleeting. But every time he kept trying to look, he really couldn't see anything because he had the lights out. So He's just like shrugged it off a few times. Well, then he kept noticing, he kept thinking he heard something. So he's seeing this shadow and he's hearing this strange sound, but he can't figure out exactly what it is. Well, he pauses the TV and he's just listening and thinking, okay, I can't be losing my mind. There's something going on. And he could hear the sound of what seemed like wings. So in his head at first he's thinking, oh geez, did a bird somehow get in here? Because there was of course a chimney, and so the birds could have gotten in from the chimney, and he's thinking in his head like, oh geez, I gotta get this bird out of this house. So my father decided, okay, I'm gonna go turn the light on, see if I can find this bird, see if I can catch this bird. So he goes and he turns on the living room light, and he is shocked by what he discovers. It's not a bird that is flapping around above his head. It is a bat. And my father was very freaked out by this bat because obviously there were always those little nightmare stories about bats, that bats could make you sick if you got bit by them because they carried rabies. And so he just instantly was scared of this thing. And of course, bats in my area are a little more creepier looking. They have that sunken in face. I mean, I think they're cute and squishy looking, but to my father, he thought that it looked like a little nightmare with wings. So he's freaking out and takes up the stairs. Now, mind you, this old house, before you went up the stairs, there was actually a door that you could open. And this door was connected into the living room area. So he opened the door to run up the stairs so that he could go find my grandmother because he was freaked out by this bat. And so he goes and he gets her. And it literally turns into that atypical story where they both head down the stairs and my dad's just freaked out and he wants to hide behind his grandma, and she's just moving slowly in front of him. And I don't know if they had a broom or something. I vaguely remember him maybe saying she took her book down with her, that she was going to use that book to protect them. But they are both heading down the stairs slowly and reaching down to the bottom of the steps leading into the living room and able to start peering in to see if they can see this bat. Well, my dad's grandma, I guess, is kind of looking around and looking up above the ceiling, and she slowly goes into the room and does the atypical, looks at my dad and is like, well, there's nothing in here, so I don't see anything flying around in here. So my dad comes out and he's looking around. There's nothing above their head. There's nothing there. So they start looking around the entire downstairs of the house, seeing if they can find this bat hanging out somewhere. So they continue searching through this house to see if they can find this little critter anywhere and have absolutely no luck. So, of course, my dad starts feeling like that atypical in a horror movie where it's like you come out and you say, oh, I see this thing, this scary thing, and it's not there when you have the adult there with you to help find it. So my dad's just like, well, I don't know, maybe it went back up the chimney again. And of course his grandma just kind of shrugs it off like, yeah, that could be a strong possibility. And she says, just don't worry about it. And now typically my dad was sleeping down in the living room. So my dad, being freaked out, decided he didn't want to sleep in the living room that night since he was originally sleeping on the couch. And my dad's grandmother had told him, well, you know, if you just want to go upstairs, if you feel more comfortable up there, you can stay the night in your aunt and uncle's room. Obviously they're not using it, so if you don't feel comfortable sleeping downstairs because of the possibility of the bat showing up again, she had told him that was perfectly fine. So my dad gets completely ready for bed. They both go upstairs and he closes that little door, because in his head it's, well, that door is shut, so that bat can't get upstairs, it can't get to us, so I'll just sleep up here. So my dad gets completely ready for bed and crawls into bed and is in the process of trying to fall asleep. And all of a sudden he starts realizing he hears this weird noise. And he can hear wings again. And it's the same noise he heard when he was downstairs. And of course now he's a kid and he's stuck in this bed. It is dark and he hears these wings and they're clearly above his head. And now he's trying not to freak out. And he's got the blanket up over his head thinking, you know what, I don't want anything to do with this. So as this is going on and he finally starts calming down and he can kind of hear now that the sonar chirps that a bat kind of does when it's clearly trying to see its way. So then my dad decides he was going to reach over just very carefully from under the blanket and he was going to turn the lamp on. So he does. He turns on the lamp and he peeks from under his blankets. And sure enough, here's that bat somehow up in the room with him and is just flying around up on the ceiling. But this poor thing is lost. But to my dad, he's just a child and he starts freaking out. So he rushes out of the room just hollering for his grandmother again. So he makes it over to her room, wakes up his poor grandmother. She's disoriented, just kind of hears this little kid like squabbling, like freaked out. And it's like, this thing is in my room, this thing is in my room. Well, the grandma gets up again, does the typical thing. I think maybe they had the broom upstairs at this point, because I do know that at one point they had the broom, that they were going to use it to get rid of this bat. So go to my aunt and uncle's room. Sure enough, the bat is gone again. So my poor dad is just staring at his grandma like, I swear to God, that bat was in this room. And his grandma's just kind of like, yeah. She's like, well, you turned on the light. I'm going to assume that because you turned on the light and you made some noise and moved around that the bat probably left. But my dad had to make her help him search the house. So they searched the entire house this time. Because they were thinking when they were originally on the first floor, they had left that door open. So they were wondering if the bat had gone upstairs when they had originally been downstairs looking for this bat. Well, now they were just searching everywhere. They were trying to check every nook and cranny that they thought that this bat could be at. Had no luck finding this bat. And I think it turned into where that he had to stay the night in the same room with her. Otherwise, he wasn't going to go to sleep at all. And this proceeded for the next couple of nights, where they couldn't find this bat. During the day, they would search the house, seeing if they could find this thing. Absolutely no luck. Could not find it. Nightfall would come. My dad would either be downstairs watching the TV, most likely probably him downstairs watching the TV, and the bat would come back out. But by the time that my dad would go to get his grandma, the bat would be gone. And like I said, this proceeded for several nights. Finally, it was coming to almost the last day of my dad staying with my grandma before his aunt and uncle came back from their vacation. And they had absolutely no luck finding this bat because they had searched every day. So my dad and his grandma had decided that they were going to deep clean the house and get everything ready before my dad's aunt and uncle got back. So they were going around the house and deep cleaning everything. And finally, my dad, I guess, was upstairs and he was using like the broom or the vacuum. I can't remember which it was, but he was cleaning the curtains. Now, mind you, while he was cleaning the curtains, all of a sudden, something came flying out at him and freaked the ever-living shit out of him. Here, that bat had been up in those curtains and was either hanging out or whatever, or that's where it had its hiding spot. But because my dad was cleaning, the bat came rushing out of that curtain and had scared the shit out of him. So of course here comes my dad screaming through the hallway, and then his grandma comes out trying to figure out what was going on. So they go back to the room and he's like, I swear to God it was there this time, and I actually found it during the daytime. So they get in there and the bat is there, but the poor thing was scared, and the fact that it had probably several days of not being able to eat anything because it was trapped in this house. So the bat is just kind of like twitching its way, trying to get through the room, and it was very weirdly crawling on the floor. I guess crawling through the carpet, just kind of making its way. And so my dad had decided he was going to try and catch this thing and get it out of the house. So his grandmother, I guess, had grabbed one of the pillowcases from off the bed and had him snag this little bat up in this pillowcase. And of course, it was very upset being caught. So you can imagine this little bat inside this pillowcase just kind of freaking out and screeching. My dad's grandma had him take this thing outside and release it. And my dad had flat out said that this poor thing just, you could tell it had had a rough couple of days. So when he had released it, he's like, it really didn't go too far. He didn't think so. But he just remembers for the time that it was how many days of him seeing this bat and that his grandmother wasn't seeing it, and he said it was just one of those funny things that you just always hear of, those ghost stories or see those horror movies where you have the kid who sees the monster and then runs to tell the parent, and obviously it's gone by the time that the adults are there to see it. But luckily for my dad, that on the last day he was there, that they did finally discover this bat, this poor bat that had gotten stuck in this house. Now mind you, when I was going to tell this story, I kind of had the idea and the thought process of changing it up a bit and just saying, oh, this is based on a horror story, and saying a kid and the evil bat and changing it up a bit. But you know what, even telling the true story about what had happened to my dad and his grandma, or I should say my great-grandma, that it just was one of those funny things. And thinking back then, and especially the fact that you can still relate horror movies to that one today. But yeah, I also thought it'd be fun to dress up in my bat costume. I absolutely love this hoodie. It is super warm, super comfortable. I cannot wear it in the summertime whatsoever, or any of the warm months. Obvious reasons. I'd be dying in the summertime. But fall has set in. It has gotten cool outside, so I am able to wear this comfortably. And this is also this month's October theme of This is Halloween. So I keep it super simple. The inspiration actually came from my friend Karen, so shout out to Karen if you are watching right now, because she had put a gif of This is Halloween from A Nightmare Before Christmas, and it's like, you know what? Sometimes the classics just are perfect for on theme, and so we are doing the theme of October of This is Halloween because we love Halloween and we are going to celebrate it in any way that we can. But yes, I wanted the excuse to wear my bat costume, and I'm like, what better reason than to talk about my dad's old story that he used to tell me and my brother about the time that he stayed with his grandma and was really, really scared of a little tiny bat. But I want to thank you for joining me here on another Luxxxy Charms and Ghost Stories My Father Used to Tell Me. And if you would like to continue following me on my other social medias, you can follow me on my Twitter for Charsie Lux with 3 X's. You can also follow me on my Instagram for Charsie87. And you can also follow me on my other YouTube channel with my friend DC called Little Channel of Horrors. And hopefully this video is not too choppy. Like I said, I keep noticing that video is kind of weird, so the bloopers is probably going to be nothing but me checking the camera to see if it's in sync, because this is the easiest way to see if the camera is still in sync or not. So, but anyway, as always, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. the rest of your afternoon, the rest of your evening, the rest of your night. Whatever time of the day it is, I hope you enjoy the rest of it. Bye! Oh, this camera's gonna drive me nuts today. I wonder what that update did. We'll just keep getting confused, so we'll just say my father and his grandmother, and so, alright, let's see, is this on? Okay, looks like it's there. Alright, are you back on? Catch back up again, yeah, there you caught up. And of course, my dad is just freaked out. He wants to stay behind my grandma, or do 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 do.